The massive alien fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their ships gleamed like polished crystal, catching and reflecting the distant sunlight in beautiful patterns. Each vessel was a masterpiece of advanced engineering, looking more like floating art pieces than warships. On the bridge of the lead ship, High Commander Vale stood tall, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the blue planet on the main screen. His silver skin reflected the soft lighting of the command center, where dozens of officers worked at their stations. "Another primitive world to add to our empire," Vale said, his translator converting his whistling speech into standard galactic basic. "Scan for their defensive capabilities." The scan officers worked quickly, their fingers dancing over holographic controls. One of them suddenly stopped, confusion clear on his face. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings from their orbital stations." Vale walked over to examine the readings himself. These weren't the typical primitive satellite signals his fleet usually encountered when finding new civilizations. These were organized, purposeful, and military. Before he could analyze further, a transmission cut through their communication system. The aliens were attempting contact. On the main screen, a human appeared. He wore a dark blue uniform decorated with gold insignia. Admiral James Gray of the Earth Defense Fleet. His expression was calm and professional as he spoke. "Greetings to the unknown vessels that have entered our solar system. I am Admiral Gray, representing the United Governments of Earth. We welcome peaceful contact, but advise that you are approaching a protected system. Please state your intentions." Vale was surprised. Most primitive species either panicked or cowered when they saw the United Fleet. This human showed neither fear nor awe. It was unsettling. "I am High Commander Vale of the United Fleet, representing the Galactic Council," Vale responded, using his most diplomatic tone. "We have come to offer your species integration into our empire. Your world will benefit from our protection and guidance." There was a pause as Admiral Gray seemed to consider this. His response, when it came, was measured but firm. "We appreciate your offer, High Commander, but Earth is not interested in becoming part of your empire. We are open to establishing diplomatic relations as equals." Vale's upper eyes narrowed. Equals. With primitives. His scan officers had confirmed these humans still used chemical rockets for some of their space travel. They hadn't even developed proper quantum communications yet. "Perhaps I wasn't clear," Vale said, letting a hint of steel enter his voice. "Integration is not an offer. It is the natural order of things. Primitive species require guidance to avoid destroying themselves. You should be honored." Admiral Gray's expression hardened slightly. "And perhaps we weren't clear, High Commander. Earth does not submit to threats, veiled or otherwise. We request that you withdraw your fleet to the outer system boundary, where we can continue this discussion through proper diplomatic channels." Vale felt his patience wearing thin. These humans needed to learn their place. He gestured to his weapons officer. "A small demonstration, I think. Target one of their orbital satellites. Low power only. We don't want to frighten them too badly." But before his crew could act, new energy signatures began appearing around Earth. Something massive was rising from behind the planet, emerging from what his sensors said was a hidden shipyard in high orbit. "High Commander," his sensor officer called out, voice shaking slightly. "You need to see this." Vale turned back to the main screen just as the human vessel came into full view. His four eyes widened, and for the first time in his long military career, he felt a chill run down his spine. This was no primitive spacecraft. This was something else entirely. Where his ships were elegant and beautiful, this human vessel was brutal and purposeful. Layer upon layer of thick armor plating covered its hull. Weapon systems of various types bristled from multiple hardpoints. The ship's very design seemed to scream that it had been built for one purpose only: war. "High Commander Vale." Admiral Gray's voice came through again, still professional but with an edge of steel that hadn't been there before. "Allow me to introduce the EDS Prometheus. Since you seem interested in demonstrations, perhaps we could arrange one of our own." Vale stared at the human warship, realizing that this first contact had just become far more complicated than he'd expected. These humans weren't primitive at all. They were something far more dangerous. They were prepared. The alien fleet's command center fell silent as the EDS Prometheus moved into clear view. The massive human warship blocked out the stars behind it, its dark hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it like the alien vessels did. "Impossible," whispered Chief Science Officer Reed of the alien fleet, his silver skin turning slightly pale. "They shouldn't have this level of technology. Their civilization is barely 300 years into their space age." High Commander Vale couldn't take his 4 eyes off the main screen. The human ship was ugly by his people's standards. No smooth lines or crystal architecture, just layers of thick armor and weapons. So many weapons. "Give me a full scan," Vale ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "I want to know everything about that ship." The science teams worked frantically at their stations, holographic displays filled with data as their advanced sensors probed the Prometheus. With each new reading, their confusion grew. "Sir," Reed reported, "their hull it's primitive but brilliant. Layer upon layer of different metals and composites. If one layer gets damaged, the others compensate, and there are repair systems between the layers." Vale stepped closer to the readings. "What about their weapons?" "That's the strange part," Reed said, bringing up more displays. "They're using everything. Kinetic weapons, energy weapons, missiles, even nuclear devices. It's like they couldn't decide on one technology, so they just used them all." On the main screen, the Prometheus slowly turned, giving the alien fleet a clear view of its broadside. Running along its length were massive railgun batteries, their barrels longer than some smaller ships. Point defense turrets covered every surface, and missile pods sat ready in armored housings. "Their power source?" Vale asked. "Multiple nuclear reactors," Reed replied, shaking his head in disbelief. "Not quantum cores like ours. They're using fission and fusion reactors. Primitive technology, but they've refined it to an art form. The power output is substantial." The tactical officer, Max, suddenly spoke up. "Sir, look at their design. Every part of that ship is built to take damage and keep fighting. Our ships are designed to avoid hits with our advanced shields. Their ship is designed to take hits and survive them." As if to emphasize this point, the Prometheus's outer armor plates shifted slightly, adjusting their angles. The movement reminded Vale of a warrior adjusting their stance before battle. Admiral Gray's voice came through the communications system again. "I notice your scanning crews are quite interested in our ship, High Commander. The Prometheus is the first of our new Guardian-class battleships. Would you like a closer look?" The huge human vessel began moving forward, its engines glowing with nuclear fire. Vale noticed how the ship's movement was different from his own fleet's vessels. Where alien ships glided gracefully through space, the Prometheus moved like a predator, purposeful and threatening. "Sir," Max reported urgently, "they're powering up their weapons, but I can't predict which ones they'll use. There are too many different systems activating at once." Vale felt a new emotion he hadn't experienced in years. Fear. His fleet's tactical computers were designed to predict enemy actions and raise shields accordingly. But the humans weren't following any known combat doctrine. They had weapons for every range and situation, and all of them seemed to be preparing to fire. "Their engineering approach is fascinating," Reed continued, still studying the scans. "They've taken what we consider outdated technology and pushed it to its absolute limits. Those railguns, they're simple physics, just electromagnets throwing metal, but at speeds that could crack our best shields. Their missile guidance systems are basic but incredibly hardened against electronic warfare. It's like they took every primitive technology and perfected it." The Prometheus had stopped moving now, sitting between Earth and the alien fleet like a massive guardian. Its weapon ports were open, its arrays of railguns, missile pods, and energy cannons all tracking different targets in the alien fleet. High Commander, Admiral Gray's voice came through once more. I believe you mentioned something about a demonstration earlier. We would be happy to provide one. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to discuss diplomatic relations between equals. Vale stared at the human battleship, understanding dawning in his four eyes. His people had spent centuries making their ships more elegant, more advanced. The humans had spent that time making their ships more lethal. Open a channel, Vale ordered quietly. I believe we should reconsider our approach to these diplomatic discussions. As his communications officer rushed to comply, Vale couldn't help but wonder how many other surprises these humans had waiting in their shipyards. For the first time in the United Fleet's history, they had found a species that built ships not to explore, not to trade, but to fight and win. In the depths of High Commander Vale's flagship, the science labs were in chaos. Teams of the galaxy's brightest minds huddled around holographic displays, arguing over the data streaming in from their scans of the EDS Prometheus. These readings make no sense. Professor Lan, the fleet's senior weapons analyst, tapped rapidly on his display. His silver skin had taken on a stressed purple tinge. Look at their missile systems. They're using chemical propulsion, but the acceleration rates are off the charts. Chief Science Officer Reed moved between the research stations, his four eyes darting from screen to screen. They've done something unique with every piece of technology we considered obsolete. Their entire approach to space combat is different. A junior researcher called out from her station. Sir, I've analyzed their point defense network. They're using both energy weapons and kinetic interceptors. It's like they're expecting to fight enemies with different types of shields. Or no shields at all, Reed muttered, pulling up new data. Look at their main weapons. Those railguns, the kinetic force alone would overwhelm most shield systems. And if those fail, they have energy weapons. If those fail, they have missiles. They've built redundancy into everything. The lab's main display showed a rotating image of the Prometheus. Unlike the alien ships, which resembled delicate crystal sculptures, the human vessel looked like it had been carved from a solid block of metal. Its hull was a maze of armor plates, weapon ports, and sensor arrays. Professor Land pointed to something new on his screen. Commander Reed, look at their reactor setup. Multiple fusion reactors, all working together. If one gets damaged, the others automatically compensate. It's brilliant in its simplicity. Their entire engineering philosophy is about survival, Reed said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Our ships are built to prevent damage. Their ship is built to endure it. The lab doors slid open, and High Commander Vale entered. The scientists straightened at attention, but Vale waved them back to their work. Tell me something useful, he ordered. How do we counter this ship if we need to? Reed and Lan exchanged nervous glances. Sir, Reed began carefully, the problem isn't just their technology. It's their entire approach to space warfare. Look at this. He pulled up a comparison display. On one side was one of their own cruisers, sleek, beautiful, with advanced quantum shields and elegant energy weapons. On the other side was the Prometheus, brutal, heavily armored, bristling with weapons of every type. Our ships are specialized, sir, Reed explained. Each class has a specific role, specific weapons. But this human ship, it's designed to handle any combat situation. Those thick armor plates, they're angled to deflect energy weapons. The multiple layers help absorb kinetic impacts. They've even got systems we can't identify scattered throughout the hull. Professor Land stepped forward. And there's more, sir. Their weapon systems aren't just powerful. They're redundant. If we disable their energy weapons, they have railguns. If we somehow stop those, they have missiles. If we block their targeting systems, they can switch to manual control. They've planned for every type of failure. Vale stared at the rotating image of the Prometheus. How long would it take us to develop countermeasures? That's another problem. Sir, a young technician spoke up. then shrank back when all eyes turned to her. "Go on," Vale encouraged. "Well, sir," she continued, "their systems are constantly moving, shifting. Those armor plates can change angles. Weapon ports open and close. Power distribution shifts around the ship. It's like it's alive. We develop a countermeasure, and they just adapt their existing systems to deal with it." Reed nodded. The humans took a completely different path in their technological development. While we focused on making things more advanced, more elegant, they focused on making things more effective, more survivable. They built their ships expecting to fight enemies more advanced than themselves. Vale watched as new data continued to pour in from their scans. Each revelation showed another layer of human ingenuity, another system designed with combat in mind. These weren't the actions of a primitive species. These were the preparations of a race that understood one fundamental truth. The galaxy could be hostile, and they needed to be ready. "Sir," Reed said quietly, "I don't think the question is how we counter this ship. I think the question is, how many more do they have?" Vale turned to leave the lab, his mind heavy with new concerns. "Keep analyzing," he ordered. "I need to contact the Council. They need to know that we've made a serious mistake in our assessment of humanity." As the door closed behind him, the scientists returned to their work, each one wrestling with the same disturbing thought. If this was humanity's first revealed warship, what other surprises were they hiding? High Commander Vale stood on his bridge, all four of his eyes fixed on the massive human warship. His pride was fighting with his common sense, and unfortunately for everyone, pride was winning. "They need to learn their place," he announced. "Prepare a warning shot. Low power, targeting their forward section. Show them what real advanced technology can do." His weapons officer, Max, hesitated. "Sir, after our analysis." "That's an order," Vale snapped. "Fire when ready." The alien flagship's main gun charged with a high-pitched whine. Beautiful purple energy gathered at its tip, and then a brilliant beam shot out toward the Prometheus. The energy weapon was specifically calibrated not to cause serious damage, just enough to demonstrate their superiority. What happened next stunned everyone on the bridge. The moment the energy beam was fired, the Prometheus's outer armor plates shifted and angled themselves. The beam struck the plates and scattered, most of its energy dissipating harmlessly into space. "Impossible," Vale whispered. "They shouldn't have that kind of reaction speed." Admiral Gray's voice came through their comm system, sounding almost bored. "I take it that was your demonstration, High Commander. Allow us to respond in kind." The Prometheus's response was anything but gentle. First, its armor plates realigned. Then multiple weapon ports opened along its hull. The alien sensors screamed warnings as dozens of targeting systems locked onto Vale's ships simultaneously. "Evasive action," Vale shouted, but it was too late. The Prometheus fired its first volley. Not energy weapons, not missiles, but massive rounds from its railgun batteries. The projectiles crossed the space between the ships almost instantly, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The alien fleet's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, might as well have been paper. The kinetic impacts hammered 3 of Vale's escort ships, spinning them out of formation. None were destroyed, but their shield generators overloaded instantly. "Report," Vale demanded. 3 ships have lost shields," Max reported, his voice shaking. "Their hull integrity is at 60%. 1 hit per ship, sir." They were warning shots. The human ship deliberately didn't hit anything critical. Before Vale could respond, the Prometheus launched its second attack. This time, swarms of missiles erupted from its launch tubes. But these weren't normal missiles. They split apart in mid-flight, each one becoming dozens of smaller projectiles. "Point defense systems, now," Vale ordered. The alien fleet's defense lasers sprang to life, trying to shoot down the incoming missiles. They managed to destroy many, but there were simply too many targets. The remaining missiles struck home. their conventional warheads detonating against unshielded hulls. 2 more ships reporting heavy damage, Max announced. They're using some kind of advanced electronic warfare package. Our targeting systems are having trouble locking on. Vale watched in horror as the Prometheus demonstrated its next weapon system. Energy beams, similar to their own, but in a deep blue color, lanced out from its secondary batteries. Unlike their warning shot, these were full power blasts that carved deep gashes in one of his ship's unshielded hulls. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "they're using multiple weapon systems simultaneously. We can't adapt our defenses fast enough." Indeed, the Prometheus was now firing everything at once. Railguns hammering shields, missiles seeking out weak points, energy weapons carving through exposed sections. It was a symphony of destruction, precisely coordinated. "All ships, return fire," Vale ordered desperately. The alien fleet released their full power, dozens of energy beams shooting toward the human vessel. But the Prometheus's response was ready. Its armor plates shifted again, presenting angled surfaces that deflected most shots. What got through was absorbed by secondary armor layers. "Their armor," Reed reported from the science station. "It's not just metal. They've got some kind of energy-absorbing material in there. They're learning from each hit, adapting their defense patterns." Vale watched as his supposedly superior fleet was systematically picked apart by a single human warship. The Prometheus hadn't even moved from its original position. It didn't need to. Its weapons covered every angle. Its defenses anticipated every attack. "Sir," Max said quietly, "we've lost combat effectiveness on 5 ships. 3 more are reporting critical damage to their shield systems. And the human ship, sir, their weapons are still at 90% charge. They're not even fighting at full capacity." Vale stared at the main screen, watching the Prometheus's weapons track his remaining ships. He finally understood. This hadn't been a battle. This had been a lesson. Admiral Gray's voice came through once more. "Shall we continue this demonstration, High Commander, or would you prefer to resume our diplomatic discussion?" Vale looked at his damaged fleet, then at the barely scratched human battleship. His pride had finally lost to common sense. "Open a channel," he ordered quietly. Tell them we're ready to talk." The damaged alien fleet hung back at a safe distance while their repair crews worked frantically. On the bridge of his flagship, High Commander Vale met with his senior officers to understand exactly what had happened during their brief but devastating encounter with the Prometheus. "Play back the battle footage again," Vale ordered. The main screen lit up with recordings from multiple ships, showing the human vessel's devastating attack from different angles. Max, the tactical officer, pointed to the display. "Watch how they executed their attack. It wasn't random. Every weapon fired had a specific purpose." The footage showed the Prometheus's first railgun volley. The massive rounds had struck with surgical precision, targeting shield generators on 3 ships. "See here," Max continued, "they didn't try to destroy our ships. They systematically disabled our defenses first. They knew exactly where to hit us." Chief Science Officer Reed stepped forward. "That's not the impressive part. Look at their timing." He gestured, and the footage continued. The missiles had launched exactly when the first ships lost their shields. The energy weapons had fired precisely when the missiles forced ships to turn, exposing their weakened sections. "Every attack flows into the next one," Reed explained. "They're not just firing weapons, they're conducting an orchestra of destruction. Each hit sets up the next one." Vale watched the footage with all 4 eyes, seeing things he'd missed during the actual battle. How did they coordinate all this so perfectly? A junior analyst spoke up from her station. "Sir, we found something interesting in their command and control systems. They're using computers." "All ships use computers," Vale said, confused. "No, sir," she explained. "I mean they're using multiple independent computer systems. Their main battle computer, backup systems, targeting computers, defensive computers, they're all separate but working together. If one system fails, the others keep working. Reed nodded excitedly. Yes. Look at this. When our electronic warfare systems disrupted their main targeting computer, they instantly switched to backups. No hesitation, no delay. They planned for every type of failure. The footage showed the Prometheus defending against the alien fleet's counterattack. Vale watched as the ship's armor plates moved like living skin, each plate adjusting its angle perfectly to deflect incoming fire. Their defensive systems are just as coordinated as their weapons, Max noted. The outer armor takes the initial hit, inner layers absorb what gets through, and damage control teams were probably already moving to repair any damage before the attack even finished. Another officer brought up new sensor data. Sir, look at their power distribution. During the battle, they were constantly rerouting power between systems. When they fired railguns, power flowed from everywhere else. When they needed stronger shields, power shifted there instantly. They turned their ship into one giant combat computer, Reed said with a mix of fear and admiration. Every system supports every other system. There's no single point of failure. Vale walked closer to the screen, studying the Prometheus's design with new understanding. Show me their crew positions during the battle. New diagrams appeared, showing heat signatures and movement patterns within the human ship. What they revealed was equally surprising. Their crew stations are heavily armored, the analyst reported. Multiple backup bridges, redundant control rooms, automated systems that can take over if crew sections are damaged. They've thought of everything. No, Vale said quietly. They've experienced everything. This isn't theoretical design. This is evolution through combat. These humans have fought wars we know nothing about. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their own ships were designed by engineers and artists working together to create perfect, elegant weapons. The Prometheus was designed by warriors who had learned hard lessons about what worked in actual combat. Sir, Max said, breaking the silence, I've completed my analysis of their attack pattern. They used less than 10% of their total missile capacity. Their main energy weapons never charged above 40% power. Those railguns, they were firing at reduced velocity. Vale turned to face his officers. You mean? Yes, sir, Max confirmed. That wasn't a battle. That was a test. They were probing our defenses, learning our capabilities. If they had fought at full power. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone on the bridge had seen how devastating the Prometheus had been while fighting at reduced capacity. The thought of what it could do at full power sent a chill through the room. Send word to the fleet, Vale ordered. All ships maintain current position. No aggressive actions. He paused, looking at the human battleship on the main screen. We need to seriously reconsider our approach to Earth. We thought we were dealing with primitives. Instead, we've discovered something far more dangerous, innovators who have mastered the art of war. While Vale's damaged fleet held their position, new sensor readings set off alarms throughout his flagship. The sensor officer's hands shook as he reported. Sir, multiple signatures emerging from Earth's orbit. The main screen showed several large objects moving out from behind Earth's moon. At first, they appeared to be shadows, but as they drew closer, the alien fleet realized they were looking at more human warships. Impossible, Vale whispered. How many? 5 more vessels, similar size to the Prometheus, the sensor officer reported. But they're different designs. Indeed, each new human ship that appeared was unique. One was longer and sleeker, bristling with what looked like thousands of missile tubes. Another was broader, carrying what appeared to be squadrons of smaller craft in armored bays. A third was compact, but mounted enormous energy weapon arrays that made the alien fleet's weapons look like toys. Admiral Gray's voice came through their comm system again. High Commander, allow me to introduce the rest of our Guardian fleet. You've met Prometheus, our test bed for combined arms warfare. Now meet her sisters. The human admiral's voice carried a hint of pride as he introduced each ship. The Zeus, our missile specialist. She carries enough firepower to level a small moon. The sleek vessel's missile bays opened, revealing row upon row of advanced weaponry. The air is our carrier. Those aren't just fighter craft she's carrying. They're automated combat drones linked to her battle network. The broad ship launched a swarm of smaller vessels that moved with impossible precision. The Apollo, energy weapon specialist. She's equipped with our latest advances in directed energy weapons. The compact ship's weapon arrays hummed with power that made the alien sensors scramble. The Artemis, our stealth specialist. Vale blinked in confusion. He could only count 4 new ships. Then his tactical officer screamed, "Sir, new contact, right behind our fleet." A 5th ship had somehow appeared behind them, having moved through their formation completely undetected. And finally, the Hades, our electronic warfare platform. Suddenly, every system on Vale's flagship began to malfunction. Screens flickered, weapons went offline, and even their quantum communications array died. Just a small demonstration of her capabilities, Gray explained as the systems slowly came back online. We could have kept them offline permanently. Vale stared at the display showing all 6 human warships. Each one was a masterpiece of military engineering, designed to excel in its specialized role, while still maintaining the brutal effectiveness they'd witnessed in the Prometheus. "Sir," his science officer reported, voice trembling, "I'm detecting similar power readings from Earth. There are more of them down there. Many more." "How many?" Vale demanded. At least 30 more ships of similar size under construction. And these are just the ones we can detect." Admiral Gray spoke again, his voice firm but not unkind. "Your scans are partially correct, High Commander. We've been building our fleet for over a century. Every ship is different. Every design tested and improved through rigorous combat simulations. The Prometheus demonstrated only a fraction of what we can do." The human ships moved into formation, surrounding the alien fleet. It wasn't meant as a threat. It was a demonstration. Each vessel held position with perfect precision, their weapons carefully aimed away from Vale's ships, while still making it clear they could target them at any moment. "Now," Gray continued, "shall we discuss proper diplomatic relations, as equals?" Vale looked at his battered fleet, then at the 6 human warships that could obviously destroy them at any moment. He thought about the 30 more under construction, and who knew how many others hidden away in secret shipyards. The humans hadn't built a fleet for show, or for exploration, or for simple defense. They had built a fleet that could take on the most powerful forces in the galaxy and win. "Open a channel to Earth," Vale ordered, his voice heavy with realization, "and send an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council. They need to know." He paused, watching as the human ships performed another perfect formation change. "They need to know that the galaxy has changed. The era of simply claiming primitive worlds is over. Humanity is not primitive. They are pioneers of a new age of warfare." As the messages were sent, Vale couldn't help but wonder. If this was how humanity approached ship design, what other surprises were they hiding? For the first time in his long career, he was grateful that this first contact, despite its rough start, hadn't turned into a real war. Because a real war with humanity, he now realized, would have ended very differently for his fleet. 3 days after the confrontation in Earth's orbit, High Commander Vale stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The massive chamber, with its crystal walls and floating platforms, held representatives from over 1,000 advanced civilizations. Today, they all wanted to hear about one thing: humanity. "You mean to tell us," the council leader spoke, his crystalline form shimmering with concern, "that these humans defeated your fleet without destroying a single ship?" Vale straightened his uniform. "They didn't defeat us, honored leader. They educated us." Murmurs spread through the chamber as Vale activated the central hologram. Images of the Prometheus and its sister ships appeared, rotating slowly for all to see. We have been accepting new species into our empire for 10,000 years, Vale explained. We judge them by their quantum technology, their energy manipulation, their artistic achievements. But humans, he paused, looking at the images of their ships. Humans judge capability by different standards. The hologram zoomed in on the Prometheus's weapon systems. They took what we consider primitive technology and perfected it. Their railguns are simple physics, but they accelerate projectiles to speeds that ignore our shields. Their nuclear power plants are old science, but they generate enough power to match our quantum cores. Another council member spoke up. But surely their civilization is still primitive compared to ours. Vale pressed a button, and new images appeared. Earth's cities, their orbital stations, their industrial capabilities. Look at their orbital shipyards, he said. They don't build one ship at a time like we do. They have assembly lines, mass production facilities. While we craft each ship like a piece of art, they prepare for full-scale war production. The images shifted to show Earth's defense network. They have planetary shields, but not like ours. They use layers of different technologies, energy screens, kinetic barriers, point defense grids. If one system fails, two more take its place. Are you suggesting, another council member asked, that we should fear these humans? Vale shook his head. No, we should learn from them. He brought up footage from their brief battle. Watch how they fight. Every action has a purpose. Every system supports every other system. They don't just build weapons, they create combat doctrines. The chamber fell silent as they watched the Prometheus systematically disable Vale's ships while taking minimal damage itself. And this, Vale continued, was just their first revealed warship. They have at least 5 more classes, each specialized for different types of warfare. They're building dozens more, each one an improvement on the last. What are you suggesting, Commander? The council leader asked. I suggest we accept Earth as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges, not as a subject race, but as equals. Outrage erupted in the chamber. Vale waited for it to die down before speaking again. Humans have shown us something we've forgotten. While we focused on making our technology more elegant, more advanced, they focused on making it more effective. While we built ships to show our power, they built ships to use it. He switched the hologram to show Admiral Gray's final message. They're willing to share their technology, their innovations, but they will only do so as equals. And after what I've seen, he looked around the chamber. We would be fools to refuse. The council leader was quiet for a long moment. And if we decide to force the issue, we have thousands of ships. Then we would learn, Vale said quietly, exactly how many ships they've hidden in their secret shipyards, how many new weapons they've developed that we haven't seen. And we would learn, probably too late, that the Prometheus and its sisters were just the tip of what humans call the spear. The chamber erupted in discussion, but Vale could see in their faces that they understood. Humanity had changed the galaxy's balance of power not through superior technology, but through superior thinking. As the council debated, Vale received a message from Earth. Admiral Gray had invited him to witness the launching of their newest ship class. Vale smiled, accepting immediately. He had a feeling that humanity would continue to surprise them for years to come. The age of simply collecting primitive worlds into their empire was over. Humanity had shown them a new path, one where innovation and determination mattered more than pure technological advancement. The galaxy would never be the same. And Vale couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what they all needed.